All right, let's dive into this explainer. We're going to be looking at a really dramatic story from the historical series, The Wars of Light and Darkness. This is all about the first chapter, which is called The Fires of Azaka. And believe me, it kicks off with a bang, a real message of pure desperation from a kingdom right on the edge of total collapse.
So, picture this. It's the blistering summer of 587 BCE, and the kingdom of Judah is literally about to be wiped off the map. This quote you see here, this isn't from some historical novel. It's a real, frantic message scratched onto a piece of pottery. A soldier is watching the horizon as the unstoppable armies of Nebuchadnezzar are closing in, and he realizes something terrifying. The signal fire from the nearby fortress of Azaka, it's gone dark, and you can just feel the panic in those words. Now, this message is part of a collection that we now call the Lachish Ostraca. And what's so absolutely mind-blowing about these things is that they are the very last written records we have, outside of the Bible, from the time of Solomon's temple. It's like hearing a voice cry out from the final terrible moments of an entire civilization. And it was written on what's called an ostracon. So what's that? Basically, it's just a broken piece of pottery, kind of like the ancient world's version of a scrap of paper. But this one particular shard, which an archaeologist named J.L. Starkey dug up back in 1938, is so much more. It's a direct, tangible link to the chaos of that last battle. I mean, the last person to hold this was a commander in a doomed fortress thousands of years ago. And you know, the end came terrifyingly fast. Nebuchadnezzar's forces were just a juggernaut, burning one city after another. Azaka and Lachish were the last two major strongholds standing between that massive army and the capital, Jerusalem. So when Azaka's fire went out, that desperate warning was sent. But it was already too late. Soon after that message was written, Lachish was also overrun and destroyed, leaving Jerusalem totally alone, completely defenseless. Okay, so this is where a simple dispatch from a battlefield becomes something else entirely, a stunning piece of historical evidence. Because the message on this little pottery shard doesn't just tell us about a battle. It actually backs up the biblical account of these exact same events, almost word for word. The connection here is just wow. The ostracon talks about a prophet whose words are weakening your hands, demoralizing the soldiers. Well, if you flip open the book of Jeremiah, the princes in Jerusalem use the exact same phrase to complain about the prophet Jeremiah, saying he weakens the hands of the men of war. I mean, come on, the parallel is just incredible. And that's the key, right? The prophet they're talking about wasn't just any prophet. It was Jeremiah. Think about it. At a time when all the other court prophets were promising a miraculous victory, Jeremiah was the lone voice saying, no, we're doomed. He was warning everyone that Jerusalem and even the Holy Temple itself would be completely destroyed. And for telling that truth, he was seen as a traitor, and he earned the absolute fury of the king. So this begs the question, why? Why was all this happening? Well, according to the story, this wasn't just a military defeat. It was seen as a divine judgment. And the cause of it all could be traced back decades to the long, dark, and corrupt reign of one specific king, King Manasseh. Manasseh's time as king was basically a laundry list of the worst things you could possibly do. He built pagan shrines, he worshipped stars and planets, he even took part in the horrifying ritual of child sacrifice. But his greatest crime, the one that really sealed the kingdom's fate, was a direct attack on their faith. He put shrines to foreign gods inside Solomon's temple, and he kicked out the legitimate high priests. You see, for centuries, Judah had been led by what you could call an anointed diarchy. It was a sacred power-sharing deal. You had the king, who was from the line of David, and you had the high priest, who was from the line of Zadok. They were like the two pillars holding up the entire kingdom. So, by throwing out the rightful priests and putting in his own guys, Manasseh didn't just bend the rules, he completely shattered the kingdom's sacred foundation. And the thing is, there was no coming back from that. The consequences were set in stone. Even though a later king, the good King Josiah, tried to reform everything and clean house, the damage was already done. The Book of Kings is crystal clear. The decree against Judah for what Manasseh had done, especially for all the innocent blood he shed, that was a debt that would not be pardoned. And so, just as Jeremiah had prophesied, the bill came due. The final terrible act of this tragedy was the fall of the holy city itself, a catastrophe that would send echoes down through history.
In 586 BCE, it all came crashing down. The walls of Jerusalem were breached. Solomon's temple, the center of their world for 400 years, was looted and then burned right to its foundations. The king, Zedekiah, was caught. He was forced to watch his own sons be executed right in front of him, and then his eyes were gouged out. He was the last king from David's line to ever sit on the throne, and the people were dragged off into exile in Babylon.
But you see, the story doesn't really end there, in the dust and ashes of Jerusalem. This incredible trauma created a powerful, lasting legacy. It actually became a kind of theological blueprint that would shape how people understood their world for centuries to come.
The names Manasseh and his wicked priests became code words, shorthand, for the ultimate corruption, the ultimate betrayal. We know that hundreds of years later, during the time of the Second Temple, groups like the Essenes, the community we associate with the Dead Sea Scrolls, they used these exact same labels to talk about the corrupt leaders of their own day. That original sin cast a very, very long shadow.
And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? This isn't just a story about ancient history. It's a powerful example of how historical trauma, how the memory of a deep betrayal can become the lens through which every future generation sees its own struggles. It can shape a people's destiny in ways the original players could never have possibly imagined.
Please like and subscribe for more videos like this. For more information or to purchase this full volume, please press on the link in the description.